Hello and welcome back to another video on the channel. Today we're going to be doing the top 50 players in the NFL draft. Here's where PFF has them all ranked. We're going to be reacting to their picks for the top 50 players in the NFL draft and just, giving my own opinions on what they have to say and saying where I think these players should really be falling in a top 50 board, or if I agree with PFF. And let's just get started with it right away. At Travis Hunter, number 1. Starting off with the number 1 player, I already disagree with this list, and I don't want to make a lot of disagreements because I think PFF is relatively reliable, but not as much when it comes to a lot of the college players. I feel like more NFL related stuff they're pretty good with. So for me, I would actually have Abdul Carter ranked number 1. I think he is just, whatever team gets him instantly gets an absolute dominating pass rusher, a difference maker at the next level. And Travis Hunter is right there as well. Like, he is like, it's like 1A, 1B. But to me, Abdul Carter is just, he's the number 1 player in the draft. He should be being drafted number 1. And I don't just say that as a Penn State fan. I say that as a general fan of the NFL, general fan of college and the NFL draft, and I think Abdul Carter is the best player in the draft. But at the same time, Travis Hunter is something entirely different, but at the same time so generationally impactful. Plays both corner and wide receiver, and I think he's just absolutely phenomenal as well. Looking at the pro level, I could definitely see him ending up playing more of a corner role, although a couple of people have said that he could possibly play some wide receiver. Either way, I see him dominating at the next level. Both him and Carter are 1A and 1B for me. But I would give Carter the slight bump, and I would say that he's right there at 1, and Hunter's more of like the 2, as he's playing a little bit of each side of the ball, not 100% yet, which side he's going to play, so I feel like that's a big determining factor, especially for where he gets drafted at. Getting down here, I believe this list is, it's updated. Ted McMillan at number 3 is something that is crazy to me, but also I can kind of understand where they're coming from. So he has all-pro potential because of his length, athleticism, and football intelligence. I see Ted McMillan and I instantly think of Drake London. Very similar players, a little dissimilar in some ways, but like similar height, similar throw up the ball, and it's gonna catch it. Nice hands, nice vision to be able to catch the ball as well, and just great football intelligence, as they said here. Athleticism, football intelligence, I agree with that, and that's also where I see the Drake London comparisons with Ted McMillan. But to have him as the number 3 player in your top 50 players is insane to me. There's, and I know it's hard to compare offense and defense, but Mason Graham down here exists. Ashton Jeanty exists, and he, to me, is a much more impactful player than Ted McMillan. Although, I don't mean to put Ted McMillan down in any way, because I think he's awesome too. He's actually like one of my favorite wide receivers to come out in the past couple of years. I like Drake London a lot coming out, and seeing Ted McMillan as well. He's awesome to watch, but to me, he's more of a top 15 player. He's not in the top 3, but they have him ranked at 3 here. Then we get down to Mason Graham. This is one I can see. I can see him even being top 3 player in this class. Like, he is genuinely a difference maker, run-stuffing defensive lineman. He's fast, violent, and relentless, as they say here, and that is all very, very true. He brings a high floor at all times and a high ceiling in flashes. Yes, he can play on both the 3 technique, as a 3 technique defensive tackle for a 4-3 front, and I could see many teams enjoying him playing some nose tackle for him. Like him on the Jaguars or the Panthers, them getting that difference-making defensive tackle is something that cannot be understated. And Mason Graham is definitely a difference maker, so I feel like that ranking is very justified. And then you get down to Jeanty, and ranking a running back. I mean, obviously running backs they can be very impressive sometimes, and it's hard to rank them among other players. I think that Jeanty, though, is like probably best running back. Yeah, it's got to be best running back to come out since Bijan Robinson a couple years ago. He's just balance, footwork, vision, explosiveness, as everything is saying here. And Alvin Kamara I like a lot as a comparison. And I forget what the other one was. I was seeing some shades of Dalvin Cook, and I kind of like that. He's definitely a different player than Dalvin Cook, though. So I don't know, but I can kind of see where they're coming from with, you know, how he's kind of like he uses his balance in impressive ways. You know, he's just, he kind of seems bigger than he actually is, and he's going to be an awesome weapon for a team to have. I could see him. My dream pick, as I said in my 1.0 mock draft, is just him to the Broncos. I know it won't happen, but it's just like match made in heaven. But he will be dominant on whatever team he plays for. He's an awesome running back. Will Campbell, another player I've liked since, I think, last year when we were doing way too early mock drafts. Will Campbell was just like a guy that continued to stand out. He's just amazing, and when he gets down in the trenches, he's the best offensive line prospect I've seen within the past couple of years. I'd say I can't really think of one that comes to mind that is just such of like a brick wall as Will Campbell. And I heard a couple of people, they were saying some Peter Skoronski comparisons, and I said I can definitely see that with Will Campbell, but unlike a player like Skoronski, I think you keep Will Campbell at tackle and you don't switch him to guard. And he's just going to be one of the best tackles to play in the NFL, very possibly. And I also see some similar comparisons with Joe Alt, who came out last year out of the draft and went to the Los Angeles Chargers. I think whatever team drafts him, say the New England Patriots, they just get an absolute unit and a guy that would be able to be there for Drake May for the next decade or so. He's got great fundamentals. He's a great offensive lineman. He deserves to be ranked in maybe even the top 5. If you took Ted McMillan out, he would be, and this is a pretty similar list to what I would do. A couple of changes here, moving certain guys up, but get to number 7 and Jahdae Barron. He's like a Swiss Army knife at corner. He can just, he plays multiple sides of the game. I don't have him ranked as high. For me, I'm somebody that puts a guy like him more down in the top 20 range, but I feel like no matter what Jahdae Barron is, you get him and you're getting a nice player that can play at multiple levels: safety, wide cornerback, nickel defense. He's just Swiss Army knife. That's the best way to describe him. And number 7 is a ranking I could see, but for me, like I said, I would prefer to have him down in the top 20 range. Tyler Warren, he's being ranked as a top 5 player in this draft class, a top 3 player even in some. This is right in the range that I see him as the number 8, best player in the draft class. I can totally see that. He's awesome watching him play for Penn State. He's great in blocking. He's great catching the ball. He's versatile. He's everything you want out of, say, a franchise tight end. And he's got the nice weight and height, and he's tested out pretty well. He's that ranking makes sense to me. Get down to Malachi Starks here, and Malachi Starks is a guy that I could see being a top 5 to top 10 player in this draft class, say when we look back at it for like a year from now. And he is phenomenal. He has great motor. He can play free safety. He can play strong. He can play slot safety, and he's just like starting caliber defensive back. Like good football IQ, like they say here, tackling, movement ability. I like Malachi Starks a lot, and I feel like if the right team drafts him and develops him, he is instantly impactful. Just like starting caliber player. I really like him a lot. 9 feels like a proper ranking for me. Jahad Campbell, linebacker from Alabama, played alongside Dallas Turner and Will Anderson in previous years. And I've been liking him a lot more as the draft goes on. He's like an old school linebacker that plays with more of like a new age linebacker with that caliber of speed. He's just, and he can play Mike or edge linebacker as well, which I feel like, and he can even play Sam. I didn't even realize that he could play Sam, but PFF says he can play Sam. So wow, he's another player that it looks like he's got the ideal build, like they say here, and is versatile. He can play a couple of different positions within edge and linebacker, and he must continue to develop anticipation. All pro player. And when I watch his tape, I see that out of Jahad Campbell too. I feel like he is like on that level where he's just gone up and up draft boards, and I like him in the top 10 range. I think for my own big board, I have him ranked probably around 16 to 18, I believe, but he's going up my board. He's really fun to watch, honestly. Get to Armand Membo, and this is a guy that, if the New York Jets are drafting an offensive lineman, it's going to be Armand Membo. And just like a lot of people have said, it's shades of Elijah Vera Tucker, but like a much more solid and instantly starting caliber player than Elijah Vera Tucker. Coming out, I do believe he had injury concerns, and I think there was other issues with him as well, where he needed to develop over time. And still, say he's been in the NFL for 3 years, and he still hasn't fully developed as a pass protector. So I think Armand Membu is kind of like, he shows the shades of Elijah Vera Tucker's best play, but he is a much more technically sound player. And seeing him on the Jets, I could see him being instantly impactful. Other teams that could draft him, I'm not really sure. The Jets are just like a perfect pick for him. As an actual player, he's really good. He's got great length, movement ability, as they say here, and a great zone blocker as well. So PFF kind of hit it on the nail, and I think 11 is a great ranking for Armand Membo. And then getting down the board, we got Mike Green here, and then we got Will Johnson down here. Mike Green, as I said in the Mock Draft 1.0 video, he is awesome. And another guy like Jahad Campbell, where he's just climbing up draft boards. And to a team like the Cincinnati Bengals or another team needing edge, like say maybe the Dallas Cowboys, I could totally see him fitting well on. Mike Green is just, even though he plays at Marshall, he's so dominant. I believe he led the FBS or led college football in total sacks, something like that. I'm not 100% sure on the stat line, but I just know he had a double-digit sack season, and he was one of the best edge rushers in all of college football. And that's something you would definitely want to see on one of your teams. I love the 12 ranking. I feel like he's only going to go up. Maybe this is his ceiling right here around 12, 13, 14. But love Mike Green, and I can totally understand that as a ranking. Will Johnson, depending on how he tested out at the Combine, which I still have to check out, he will move up for me. He will continue to move up. He's a player similar to Derek Stingley, not in the way that he plays, but how Derek Stingley, due to the COVID eligibility season, kind of sat out that last year at LSU, but kept the same draft stock. Will Johnson didn't sit out, but the Michigan defense totally had a couple of downgrades, and the team as a whole, a lot of players go into the NFL. So Will Johnson's just a player that no matter when you take him, I feel like he's still just going to be great. He's going to be exactly what you need as a corner, and I love seeing him to a team like the 49ers or a cornerback needy team. And I think 13 is a great ranking for him, but I think his ceiling is a top 5 player in this draft class. And looking back a year from now, teams are probably going to regret the fact that they didn't take Will Johnson early. Luther Burden. Burden is one of my sleeper players of the draft. He's just continued to fall down people's draft boards due to a couple of concerns with coaching kind of almost babying him in a way, and a couple of other small things. I believe there's maybe some height, weight concerns. We'll have to see how he tests out and how things go as the draft gets closer. But Luther Burden to me is he's such a great player. He's the going back up here, let me say. He is right there with Ted McMillan for one of the top wide receivers in this draft class. Although I definitely do rank him a decent amount lower than Ted McMillan. Luther Burden is, get him the right coaching staff around, say in Denver, or say maybe Los Angeles, and you have an instant impact player there. He's more of at the point where I consider him a wide receiver too, but I could definitely see him becoming a wide receiver one day. He's absolutely phenomenal and first round talent. There's no doubt about it. I can't even see him slipping into the second round. A team will take him, and if it's the Kansas City Chiefs, I will probably die because them getting a player of that skill set to pair with Patrick Mahomes would be absolutely insane. It's probably what's going to happen, but hopefully he doesn't fall that far. And I love a team in the mid-teens taking him and just kind of taking a little bit of a risk, but he's a multi-sport athlete. He's an amazing wide receiver, and I love him right here at 14, but I could see him being even better than that. One of my very first film analysis of the year was for James Pierce Jr., the defensive end from Tennessee. He is just, and I know I've said this for a lot of players, but he is disruptive. He's a really great player. And in my mock, I put him on the Falcons, and I love that scheme fit. You get an instant impact defensive end. There is a couple of things where he has to work on. I say maybe some of the bull rushes in there were looking a little spotty, and but he has high motor, and he has that ability. And look at the height, weight as well. He's just 15 feels like a proper ranking for me, but like a couple of the players I said in this class, he could definitely go up. Say when you're looking back at this a year from now, he's just really technically sound. A guy going back a year was in top 5 picks for mock drafts, way too early mock drafts. People were picking him, sending him to Carolina in the top 5. He's really good. Donovan Izaraku. I do know how to say his name properly now, and he's a guy that I've been watching a lot more recently. He's really great football IQ, and even playing at Boston College, kind of a smaller school, he's been able to stand out from the crowd, and he's a linebacker type edge rusher who can struggle with the power aspects of the game. I totally agree with what PFF has to say here. And 16 is moving him a bit higher up big boards, but I can totally understand. He's a player that as you watch him more, you can kind of see just how great he is. And for me, I still kind of have him down in the 25 or so range, but I can see why PFF put him here at 16. Kenneth Grant. And Kenneth Grant, there's not too much to say about him. He's a nice defensive tackle. He's a nice nose tackle with good quickness and size to the nose tackle position, strength to dominate single blocks and hold up against doubles. He's a physically imposing player, but I still feel like Kenneth Grant has so many things to work on. But there's a couple of teams that I could see picking him and developing him over time, and he could become something nice. Obviously, his teammate Mason Graham is getting drafted most likely in the top 5. I think Kenneth Grant has a lot of similar traits. Say if he stayed another year at Michigan, I feel like he would have been a top 5 draft pick. But he's at the point where declare for the draft and just hope a team gets him and is able to develop him properly. But I really like Kenneth Grant. People were comparing him to Mozzie Smith. I don't see where that is at all. Mozzie Smith is not even comparable, and I know they both went to Michigan, but I don't see that at all. Mozzie Smith is nowhere near the caliber of player that Kenneth Grant is, and I feel like this is a proper ranking. He's moved up a little bit for me, but he's still in the 15 to 20 range. He's a good caliber player, but he has a lot of work to do. Josh Simmons, he's a player I haven't watched a lot of film on, but he came off the ACL tear in 2024. He has great movement skills, great football intelligence, and he has the ability to be an NFL starting tackle. Whether he's an instant impact or not depends on what team he goes to. But he's a player that I like. Comes from a good school, and I don't really have too much to say on him because I still have to do some more film analysis, film watching, and see what else I like about him. But I see him as a solid player. Most of my mocks I throw him on either the Steelers or Arizona, and I like him to either of those spots. 18 feels like a decent ranking. Top 50. Emeka Buka. I've been a fan of him for the past 2 years. Thought he was going to declare a year ago. He stays, and he kind of stays in the same range, first round draft prospect. And there's nothing else really to say. I mean, Emeka Buka he's a solid player. He's continued to show that year after year, and I think when somebody in the NFL takes him, they'll have him as a wide receiver too. There's not too much to say. He's a solid caliber player coming from Ohio State. Played alongside receivers like Jackson Smith and Jigba and Garrett Wilson. He's just been a guy that's been going up the depth chart over the past couple of years and has continued to prove that he is a starting caliber wide receiver in the NFL. Kelvin Banks. This is the Houston Texans' dream pick right here. I feel like Kelvin Banks would perfectly replace Laramie Tunsil. And I like him decently as a draft selection. Once again, another player where the tackles I haven't watched too much film on. Kelvin Banks probably I've watched the most film on. But he's got great size, he's got great height, and number 20 feels like the proper pick. So I'm just going to move on after that. I like Kelvin Banks. And Cam Ward, to me, needs to be higher. I know there was a couple of unorthodox problems in his last year. But at the same time, he almost led that Miami team to the college football playoffs, and he's going to be a franchise quarterback for a team, most likely Tennessee. And he has those fundamental skills that just push him above the rest of these players. Like Cam Ward, to me, the top 10 player in this draft class. There's no doubt. So, this, I can understand 21, but for me, top 10 player. Get down to Matthew Golden here, and at 22, I've seen him moving up a lot. He's more of a player that's closer to rank 30 for me. I feel like this class, just especially on defense, is just so well-rounded, so good. Defensive line and edge is phenomenal. I see what a lot of people are saying. I feel like him and Emeka Buka kind of go hand in hand with the wide receiver 3 and 4 of this class. Emeka is definitely a step above to me, especially with his experience. I just feel like I've watched him for so many years at Ohio State. Matthew Golden is a guy that, as I've watched, he's a player that's recently popped up on. He's been continuing to rise with his draft stock, and he's actually a really good player as well. If you check out some of his film, he's got average height and weight and average length as well. But he's a very talented player, and he has a couple of different things he can do. He's really great after the catch. As they say on here, he's got great kick return prowess, and he's not an alpha, but he could be a wide receiver too. I could easily see that. Get down to Walter Nolan, and he's a kind of a polarizing player, I feel like. Like they say here, he's not the most polished interior defender. To me, Walter Nolan could be a 23 or he could be a 40. I feel like, and his ceiling is maybe like a 15th best player in this draft, but his floor is just so low for me. It really depends on what team drafts him. I could see a team like Minnesota taking a chance on him to develop under the likes of Jonathan Allen and Javon Hargrave, and him being able to develop nicely. But he's really physically gifted, as PFF says here. Physically gifted. I mean, look at his weight and height, and he's a young guy, so I feel like he has a lot of time to develop. 23 feels proper for me, but like I said, he could be a top 15 player. He could be a top 40 player in the class. Omarion Hampton, Love him. Love UNC. He gives me so many shades of Javonte Williams, a much more polished Javonte Williams coming out of UNC. Recently in the NFL, he's struggled a lot, but coming out of UNC, Javonte Williams was so gifted going to the Broncos. We could see Hampton also go to the Broncos, see if they could get their second shot. To me, I like him going to the Dallas Cowboys, and some Dallas Cowboys fans out there have told me they don't really like Hampton, but Hampton going to the Cowboys, but I don't know. He's you give him a lot more credit than I personally give him a lot more credit than a lot of people do. I think he's a very physically gifted running back. Like PFF says, combination of size, explosiveness, and his lower body strength is really, really good. I like him a lot, and I feel like he's actually close to top 10 range in my personal thoughts for this draft class. But it's such a good draft class that he gets pushed down to like 20, which makes sense to me. And then getting to Colston Loveland down here. Loveland is somebody I love. I love Loveland. And from the early days of, like, say, a couple months ago, when draft hype was just kind of beginning, as the NFL season was picking up and the college football season was picking up, Colston Loveland was like a top 10 players. He was getting drafted in like the top 10. And I continue to see that. I feel like there's a little bit of possible draft fatigue with him, but he's such a great inline tight end, and he could just, I don't know, he's not going to help you too much in the blocking game, but he provides so much as a pass catcher. There's a couple of people saying that he reminds them of different shades of a couple of different players, but I don't know what player really pops up for me when I think of Colston Loveland. He's kind of different. Dalton Kincaid was one that came to mind. He's a more polished Dalton Kincaid, but coming out of Utah, a lot of people said similar things about Dalton Kincaid. So could we see Colston Loveland being on that level? I don't know. But that is where this comes to an end. And I hope you all liked the second video and liked us checking out some of the top 50 players on PFF's big board. Hopefully we have a couple more videos coming soon. I'd like to do some draft analysis of some players coming out. Working on an Ashton Jeanty video right now because he's just, everybody wants to talk about Ashton Jeanty. He's such a phenomenal player. But for the most part, I did agree with PFF's top 50, top 25 list. But at the same time, there's a couple of these players, just like, we don't know yet. There's a couple of wild cards. But for the most part, I feel like that top 5 is decent. Ted McMillan, though, I will bump him down. But I could still see him being really something nice. It doesn't even matter where he gets drafted for the most part. Carolina, New Orleans, New England. I can see him being just like really great. And like I said, Drake London coming out, loved him, and Ted McMillan coming out, he's exciting as well. So anyways, that's going to be the end of this video. I hope you all liked it, and if you did, feel free to like, subscribe, and I'll see you all in the next video.